Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome back to Watches Tonight here on WatchBox Studios. I am your host this evening. We are discussing the logic of platinum pricing. We're surveying luxury alarm watches, and we're discussing the phenomenon of swimmable dress watches. All of that plus your viewer wrist shots right here on Watches Tonight. Now remember, the eye in the sky, the folks who pay for these pixels, thewatchbox.com, 2,500 pre-owned late model and vintage watches live right now, including my videos and illustrative photography. The best place to buy, trade, and sell luxury watches, especially when you're willing to sell. We pay cash, we pay fast, we make it easy, and of course, I am always in the loop for your questions. Now, I have a new direct email question line for your purchase questions about watches that you see on WatchBox reviews. If you want to ask pricing and purchase questions about all those watches that I review in little snippets, that is your email line. And it's also good if you see something you like on my Instagram, Tim_Mosso, which is now all 60-second video reviews, and we're going to be putting up the long-form reviews on the Instagram TV side of that. Now, let's see what you got from me. Jumping into the box real quick, we got friends joining. Blue Shirt Buddha, first in the box. Casey White, Alexi Samola of Finland. We've got Eddie Landsberg, recently joining my network on LinkedIn. We've got Edward Ledden of Sweden, Mez944. We've got Dan. Hello, Dan. And then we've got John Watchsmith, Tim Harrogate UK here, and Mr. No Date Evening All, Aunt G, Alan W, Kunik, and Richard K. Welcome, guys. Good to have you in the box. Let's see what you guys got from me. Your wrist shots, your pieces on my pixels. Dylan L gets our show airborne with our lead-off shot. Dylan, where are you? But he's got an airborne shot of his IWC Pilot's Watch chronograph Spitfire and scale model. Man, if that thing were motorized and radio control, I would be all over that. The watch ain't bad either. Brown M continues our aviation theme with his Glasuta Original Senator Navigator Panorama Date. We recently highlighted this series on the show. Rob flies without wings. This isn't even a watch shot, but I had to put that in there. The Jaguar XJ220 by Tom Walkinshaw Racing. Absolutely ace. And one hell of a dog. Note how they're color keyed. Finally, Russell K, fellow auto enthusiast and watch connoisseur, enjoys his Patek 5741G on the water. Nice shot, Russell. One of our best composed wrist shots ever. Send your wrist shots to MondayMailbag at thewatchbox.com if you think you can one-up those guys. Now, Francis K asks, is platinum worth the premium over gold? This is a great question because specifically you're asking me about white gold in the original email. And just prior to this show, let's be totally honest about what these metals cost. Platinum on the New York Mercantile Exchange was trading at $1,023 for 1 troy ounce, which grades out to 31.1 grams. Gold, yellow gold, was trading at $1,506.60 per troy ounce, which is to say there is a huge price disparity in favor of gold, not platinum. Historically, this isn't common, but it is the world in which we live right now. So on a commodity price basis, there is no reason why platinum watches carry the price premium that they do. Not just a price premium, but a huge one in almost every case. By all logic, the white gold watch should cost roughly 1/3 more than platinum. And remember, white gold costs more to make than simply casting 18-karat yellow gold. So per ounce, if we were to price white gold, it would be even a little bit higher than $1,500 US bucks. So the state of affairs is almost shocking, and I'm going to illustrate this with 2 Rolex Daytonas. Rolex sells its white gold Daytona reference 116509 after the price increase that just came for $39,350 US. That's full white gold, full bracelet current pricing. And the Platinum Daytona 116506 sells for approximately $76,000. I believe it's $75,506 or $650 right now, which is to say there is a huge price delta between those watches. Now, let's take out let's look at the price differential of about $36,000 and take out the commodity cost of the platinum. This watch weighs 228 grams. I've put it on a scale, or I should say it has a mass of 228 grams for any of you physics professors out there. I'm going to subtract 42 grams for the dial, the seals, the crystal, and the movement, which leaves us with approximately $6,000 commodity value worth of platinum in that watch and a $30,000 price delta between the white gold watch and the platinum watch. Now, this is absolutely inexplicable, even if we look at mitigating factors. Platinum is tougher to machine. It's true. It is tougher to work with platinum. It wears out tools. It is more time consuming. But that's more the case with small-scale craftsmen or individual watch refinishers. Rolex case stamping is highly automated, so it's not as though some ancient old man or woman is sitting in a shop with just this one Daytona, manually finishing it while everything else goes down a production line fully automated. There is no logical reason, even including the vagaries of working platinum. There is no reason on that basis for the $30,000 price delta. Now, let's consider this is probably a lower volume model than a full white gold, even a full white gold Daytona. But they're both really low volume watches. And I can't say I see a ton more of either one, as that semi-panda white gold full bracelet that we just saw is a scarce watch in its own right, which is to say there's not really a volume equation that explains why this costs as, well, little money as it does relative to the platinum. It's not like they're making 10 times as many of these. At the end of the day, the $30,000 price premium makes absolutely no sense except in terms of exclusivity and prestige. And this is where Rolex hopes you press the $30,000 I believe button. And they're not wrong about that. Now, I will mention that Islamic custom will look more favorably on a platinum watch than gold for traditional reasons that we're not going to get into here. Is that dial entirely platinum and base metals? I'm not entirely sure, because Rolex usually uses gold for its indices and hands, but maybe that one's an exception. So there might be a social advantage on that front at least. But the Arabic dial watches are few and far between. I would also say for some, the joy of platinum is in the subtle richness of the material, whose substance is matched only by its discretion. Now, this was last year. This was the Gerald Genta Bulgari 50th anniversary piece, and it was very subtle. Not because of its lacquer dial, that wasn't subtle, that was gloss blue, and not because of its bi-retrograde jump hour complication, but the fact that this thing was in platinum when they could have easily gotten away with steel or titanium and sold a ton more of them. The kind of guy who wants platinum wants the discretion that comes with platinum, the secret between you and your watch, that incredible feel on the wrist that no one else picks up optically. So finally, I would say the historic reputation of platinum always has placed it ahead of gold. So there is a psychic satisfaction to this right here. French King Louis XVI, who came to a bad end, described platinum in 1780 as the only metal fit for a king. It was over and above gold for a million reasons, starting with scarcity but ending in its incredible feel on the wrist. And especially if you've worn something like that full platinum Date 82, Date 840, or Rolex Daytona, or if you've been truly lucky, you've worn one of the few Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore's full bracelet in platinum. I want to say there's like 75 of them kicking around these days. That was incredible. A pound of watch on the wrist. In a hobby driven purely by emotion, and it is, the choice of a platinum watch remains one of the most personal and emotional of purchase decisions. And again, that is the $30,000 difference as Rolex sees it. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong on that front. Jumping into the box right here, we have Vegas Milgauss saying, if you think that's nuts, look up the troy ounce price of steel, or sterling silver for that matter, the rarely seen wristwatch material. We got Vegas of the white dial, Rolex Milgauss joining in, Simon Holt, we got Addie Hall, we've got Muff Mod, we've got Emily N. Emily, thanks for joining us. It's good to have some ladies in the box right here. We got Peter Richard. Platinum Daytona is amazing on the wrist, Peter notes, and he's not wrong. We have Thomas Burnett saying, loving that turquoise dial. That Rolex Glacier Blue is very special, and it has evolved. I saw a year 2000 Day-Date Platinum the other day, and it was almost sea mist green. That color is a moving target, and I'm interested to see where it goes. In particular, I'm interested to see whether Rolex does the unprecedented with the anniversary of the sub, the 70th anniversary coming up in 2023. Will that be the year we get a new sub and the first serial production platinum sub? Stay tuned. And then right here we've got Alan L. Hi Tim. Hi Alan. Adrian C's saying white gold blue dial wins every time. And then we have Muffmod saying steel is tougher to work with than platinum. I've got a couple of case refinishers who will admit it's harder to work steel, but not easier to work steel. All right, and then we got William Berdeen joining in from Valparaiso, Indiana, and he is making the live chat wearing his Zin UX SDR EZM2B. Very nice. And Blazin' Mark 1 says rose gold or bust. And then bump, we've got Tody Sanchez, and we've got Marcio. Welcome, Marcio, asking, Tim, what about Breguet? Buy opportunity? Yes, and in a big way. Breguet watches are beautifully made in the Vallée du Jeu. They're made a stone's throw away from Jaeger-LeCoultre and Audemars Piguet. They deserve to be regarded as some of the finest timepieces in terms of material quality and in-house craft arts. Everything from their guilloche to their miniature painting, enameling, all of it. It's incredible. So if you have a Breguet watch opportunity and you're looking at a $100,000 watch priced at like 45 grand, go for it, because you've got the security blanket of the Swatch Group ready to service those watches forever and finance Breguet, sun or shine. Regardless of the prospects of that brand, it will survive and eventually thrive. Whereas if you're looking for something along the lines of, say, a Laurent Ferrier, I can't tell you that that brand is on a firm footing, as nice as the stuff is. So Breguet, a great buy opportunity. I recommend the 3880, the remarkable high beat Type 22 chronograph. That's everything you could ever want in a watch. It's a serial complication, a flyback, a dual time, a 72,000 vibration per hour high beat silicon escapement, 30-second chronograph. It is a very cool watch. I like the 7727, the Classique chronometry, the remarkable 72,000 vibration per hour dress watch that actually won the Aiguille d'Or about 6 years ago. That was an incredible timepiece that never took wing. Benefit from that technological innovation, and the only watch ever made with a floating balance courtesy of magnetic balance pivots. And if you want a grand complication type of watch, then you want something along the lines of the 5887, which is a perpetual calendar running equation of time tourbillon that is freehand engraved with the image of the Royal Louis, the largest ship in the Royal era French fleet. French kings are a theme tonight. And then I would also say look at the 7047, which is a Fusée tourbillon power reserve that somehow slots in at 41 millimeters and wears on any wrist. Again, all of these available for pennies on the dollar. If you're buying Breguet, buy used, but know that you're in good hands, because again, Swatch Group, and you've got that ultimate safety net. It's never going out of business. Now let's jump back. I have Thomas Burnett saying Breguet are classique. He is a big fan. And then we've got Abdul from the Black Forest in Germany saying, I think Breguet is an awesome buy in the pre-owned. So is Gerard Perregaux and Ulysse Nardin, and we're going to cover UN tonight. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Viewer wrist shots. Max W, also of Germany, wears his Rolex Explorer 2 as intended atop the mighty Zugspitze. We are looking at Abdul in the box and on your screen, sticking to lower ground in the fatherland with his Zin 356 Flieger Chronograph 2. We've got Andrew N, keeping good company with his JLC Master Compressor Geographic, and, well, me. And then we've got Roy S. approaching shore with his rare Omega Seamaster Bullhead Chronograph re-edition at St. George, Granada. Very cool, guys. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. All right, a question from one of you. Leo F. asks, Tim, should I consider a luxury alarm watch or go straight for a minute repeater? My budget is $50,000, go. Okay, well, since you put me on the spot, I've got some thoughts. While it is possible to obtain minute repeaters from Blancpain, automatic minute repeater, 33 to 36 millimeters, these were made during the 90s, incredibly well finished front and back, but again, a particular taste and not a large watch, from IWC a Renault Papi engineered repeater mechanism on top of a Portuguese. That was the, I want to say, the 40, that was the 5240, the first gen Portuguese minute repeater from 1995. So you can find those for under 50. Heck, you can find those for under 40. And of course, Lecoultre. It is possible to find Jaeger Lecoultre, the reverso repetition from 1994. They made 500. They're a great buy. I've seen them in the 20s. So great buys there, but you're not getting the best minute repeater experience because none of those are sonically superior. Yeah, you're getting a repeater, but you're cheating yourself. Whereas for 50 grand, you're going to buy yourself one hell of an alarm watch that's going to be everything and then some. So instead, I would focus on super premium alarm watches, and I've got a few suggestions. Mediocre minute repeater money buys the world's best alarm watch, and I'm going to tell you what that is. All of them are also more useful than a minute repeater. And it may sound hypocritical of me here in this seat, on this night, in the very same breath that I spoke of emotion, to speak of the utilitarian value of an alarm watch. When I stress the foundations of the hobby, it's always going to be emotion, but hear me for a second. There is no more delightful moment for watch collectors than when we get to use our esoteric instruments as intended. When you're actually timing kids at your son's track meet or your daughter's track meet using your Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch, you actually get to put it to use. Or when you're staying up until midnight on a leap year, February 28th, with your perpetual calendar to watch the turn. Or when you're at a restaurant with your friends and your Navitimer and you're using the calculator bezel to calculate the tip. These are all epic moments that you remember forever, and they are those times when the passion and the practicality coincide. It's like a solar eclipse of the heart. So, hear me when I say the alarm watch, being practical, will work its way into your daily routine, your obligations, your meetings, your flights, and whenever you're traveling and you're out of your native time zone, the alarm watch is the best option because you will use it constantly. Whenever I travel to Switzerland, I do bring my one remaining alarm watch with me. So, let's take a look at the finest options under 50 grand, starting with Ulysse Nardin. Now, Abdul in the box had just said, hey, great buy pre-owned, Ulysse Nardin, and he's not wrong. Starting with the Sonata Cathédrale, the cathedral gong alarm with a minute repeater style governor. So 42 millimeters in white gold or rose. This is a meaty watch, but it's also the only alarm that really does deserve to be described as the aural equal of a good minute repeater. It's not just a minute repeater, it's a really good minute repeater in tone, in sustain, in lyrical musicality. The Sonata is loaded with proprietary tech, and it includes the only cathedral gongs, which is where you have the chime, you have that ring-shaped gong, and it goes 1.5 times around the movement. So it's 1.5 times circumferential. That is a cathedral gong. It makes for a better sound. You see it in the best minute repeaters. Even some fine minute repeaters, like for example a Patek 5078, will not have the cathedral gongs. The 5178, which is larger, will have them, and the Sonata, ditto. So I will also mention that there is a minute repeater governor, which slows down the chime. So instead of like a, you have a nice paced chime that sounds like a music box more than an alarm. It does have enough volume to wake you up if you're sleeping, but it also has the sweet sonorous sing to it that you're not just going to turn it off and stop it when you sit bolt upright 4 time zones out of your native land. That is an alarm you will allow to finish its message. I'll also say that thanks to a second time zone, it is a GMT. It actually has some interesting additional functionality. This is a dual time watch, and you'll note that it's loomed. So unlike some alarm watches, which have wonderful alarm functionality, this one allows you to set a 24-hour alarm cycle. It has a second time zone, and it's loomed so you can see it at night. Heck, you can even see that on the dial, if we can go full screen with that one more time, on the dial, at what would conventionally be about 7 o'clock, you can see the visible governor for the chime, and there's a grand date with a bidirectional quickset. So this thing is loaded. And I should mention, it has 2 different alarm setting modes. You can see the time at 1 o'clock, but you can also see a 24-hour countdown at 11 o'clock on the dial. So you can actually set this alarm in a countdown mode. Let's say you need an alarm to sound in 1 hour and 30 minutes, or 2 hours, or 3 hours. You can set it as a countdown alarm rather than setting it to a time, making it the only mechanical alarm that can actually do this. There's a lot to love here, and when you've got a movement with over 100 jewels hand finished, you're getting all the high horology and then some when you flip the watch over onto its case back. Now, precious metal is the rule for all of the best versions of the Sonata, including the Cathédrale. But I could say this, although it's a meaty 42, I had no trouble wearing this watch on my wrist. And you guys have my wrist 16 centimeters circumference as the eternal online frame of reference. Wherever I go from this job, I will always be with you. Glasuta Original. This is the most innovative alarm watch on the market, and it has been for a decade now. First launched at Baselworld 2010. 42 millimeters in rose gold, white gold, or steel. That one right there is the white gold, and that one right there with the black dial is the stainless steel. That's probably going to be the crowd pleaser, but if I were going for this watch, I would be on the fence between the white gold and the gray dial and the steel and the black dial. Despite its size, it wears well even on my wrist. Again, we're going to use that frame of reference. It's like Pacific Rim, you can always find me in the drift. But you can always find me on YouTube, and though a big watch, it is an easy watch to fit on a small wrist. It's also brilliant because 10 years later, this remains the only alarm watch that you can set to a time and a calendar date. So 31 days in advance, you can set it to any one of the day's 24 hours. If you want this thing to wake you up at 4 a.m., 30 days hence, it can do that. And that's a remarkable innovation that has yet to be matched by any of the usual suspects, including alarm watch stalwarts like Vulcain and Jaeger-LeCoultre. JLC, where is your excuse? The Germans have been setting the pace for a decade. This is an awesome watch, and unlike the Sonata, which is only a precious metal watch in its most interesting forms, you can pick this one up for under 15 grand in steel, and it's a great buy. Finally, if you want to mix the high horology and the functionality with a much more wearable size, think 40 millimeters, the Blancpain Le Mans Revive GMT. Now, this is a cool watch that's been around for 16 years, which is to say it's not a newcomer, but it remains rare because the take rate at Blancpain for any watch that's not a 50 fathoms is shamefully low. This is a timepiece that does it all. I don't know if we can go full screen with that for a moment, but this is a watch that exists in several styles, several metals, several special editions, fully loomed, 100-meter water resistant, 40 millimeters in steel is just about perfect, 100-meter water resistant, 24-hour alarm functionality, 12 24-hour dual time functionality, and the ability to automatically wind both its time of day and its alarm functions. One of very few alarm watches historically that can wind both of their functions without any input from you. Moreover, the alarm features both an on-off function and a power reserve indicator, so you're getting a lot of mech and tech for your money. The movement finish is high horology, caliber 1241, and it is truly awesome. You can see the striker is black polished right here. All of the screws are blued. You are getting mirrored hand-laid anglage, lovely Côte de Genève, and an engine-turned perlage on the base plate. And if you look, it has circumferential, single circumferential, hanging gongs that give you that lovely repeater-like tone and sustain, even if it does have a higher chime rate than the Sonata. But that's a black polished striker, folks. The finish of this is as good as many minute repeaters you will find, including the IWC. Volume, tone, sustain are all very good, and of the three we discussed here, that one is the loudest. Let me jump into the box reel here. We got Mr. Ninja saying, hell yes, Blancpain. And then we got BNS say, I didn't know they had that watch. They do, and they have special cool limited edition versions of it, like the Toute Vitesse and the East Coast Jewelry. Both of those are really neat to see. And there's a lot of other micro-regional editions, so you can really shop around to find the one that's all for you. And then we've got Kyle K saying that is an absolute banger. And then we've got Olympic asking, Tim, what is the slimmest alarm watch on the market? I would say the slimmest alarm watch you are going to find is probably the JLC. This is not on the market now, but it was in the 90s, the JLC Master Memovox. It was a manual wind alarm, so it didn't have a winding system or a case back to accommodate it, and it was the only JLC alarm watch to feature a display case back. So if you can find that 1990s preferably tritium dialed JLC Master Memovox manual wind, you will be looking at the thinnest alarm watch that one can procure. But the Blancpain is quite thin in its own right. And then right here, we got Joe Roach asking, Tim, thoughts on Parallel versus Ball? I think Ball, and first of all, Parallel, they have Soprod movements, which I regard highly, but the designs of the watches seem like they wouldn't wear well. A lot of them are gimmicky. The dial side turbine rotor doesn't seem very... It doesn't seem very sophisticated. It seems like it's designed to impress a tourist in the islands looking for a zero tax purchase on impulse. Like, it doesn't seem like something you could live with long term and enjoy. Mechanically, the watches are very good, again, because of the Soprod calipers, but I've never found those watches, the Parallel, to be particularly charismatic in a way that I find would endure as a long-term keeper. Whereas with Ball, they have many different styles, and a lot of folks are going to find some of their bigger watches just outright disgusting and distasteful. And then there are going to be some very cool watches from the Trainmaster series that are a little bit more compact, some smaller, more stripped-down sports watches like the Engineer 2 Magneto S. You're also going to find some very cool dive watches like the first generation Skin Master Diver and the second generation Skin Master Diver, both very cool. First gen if you want a more compact watch. Ball puts out a huge number of watches for the size of the company and its total production, so I think you've got a good chance of finding a Ball that you like better than a Parallel. I would also say that realistically, Ball is a much more innovative company, registering a lot more patents. I don't see a whole lot of patents being filed in Parallel's name, whereas Ball, for a company that shares one half of a building with another brand, is pretty damn impressive. In terms of innovation, everything from their crown guards to their shock protection systems to the anti-magnetic shielding, just very innovative and original. The watches look like nothing else, and if you find that one that sings to you, I think you're going to be very happy. Just be advised, they have put out a ton of watches, so shop around. Jumping back into the box right there, John Gallup. Tim, do you know why Rolex Omega Patek don't harden their steel like Zinn? I would say a couple of reasons. First, it makes it a little bit harder to refinish the watch. And I think for mainstream brands like that, they're probably thinking long term, and they're probably thinking about the fact that some of these hardened steels are a little bit difficult to finish. I don't know if you've seen some of the Damasco and Zinn hardened steels, Damasco with ice hardening and also Zinn with its tegament, but they tend to produce a sort of satin media blasted or matte finish that doesn't really play with Rolex's brand identity. Could it be polished? Maybe. But by convention, it never is, and I tend to think that's one of the genetic requirements of the material. Bremont does a very, very thin plasma carbon diffused surface coating, and it's not nearly as thick or as tough as what you find on a Zinn or a Damasco. You see the same thing with the surfacing on a lot of Seiko models, DiaShield. You know, it's a very thin hardened coating. When you get to super hardened coatings that are several, dozens of micrometer thick, you start dealing with finishing issues and refinishing issues that don't exist on conventional 316 or 904L steel. Plus, let's be honest, Rolex, 800,000 to 1 million watches a year. Are you going to put every single one through the carbon diffusion process? It's going to slow things down. So I think the look is wrong for Rolex, and I think the process is too slow for a truly massive mass market brand. As for Patek Philippe, I think they make a lot of money selling you new Nautilus bezels when your watch goes in for service. Jumping back into the box, we got Jean-Claude Beaver joining us, better late than never. And we've got MCC. Hi, Tim. Long time no catch you live. It's good to have you in there, MCC. Jumping back to our discussion topics right here. Bartolo D asks, how important is water resistance when buying a dress watch? That is a great topic because just about 2 weeks ago, we talked about the death of the engineer's watch genre. One of the reasons I cited was the fact that so many watches today, by virtue of silicon hairsprings, anti-magnetic escapements, various shielding technologies, we now have huge ranges of non-specialist watches that are more anti-magnetic than any Ingenieur or Milgauss or Railmaster of the past. And so it sort of is with dress watches, as we're sort of seeing the death of the specialist water-resistant watch genre. It used to be the dress watches with 100-meter water resistance were almost nowhere to be found, and now, I can't even count them on two hands. It's tough to answer that question because the difference is going to vary from buyer to buyer, describing what a dress watch is, but I'm going to try right here. Let's recognize the two obvious pioneers in the segment that have been highly water-resistant dress watches since before that was a convention. The Rolex Datejust, and there we're looking at the very first 1945 reference 4467, water-resistant from the beginning, and the Date-8. And there's a vast array starting with the reference 6510 from 1956. These were and remain dress watches in Rolex's catalog. Now, they are oyster-cased dress watches to distinguish them from the Cellinis, which might use oyster terminology from time to time, but are generally not considered swimmable watches. These, the Datejust and the Date-8, are water-resistant like the Daytona, like the GMT, like the Oyster Perpetual or the Milgauss. 100 meters, screw-down crowns, screwed-in casebacks, no joke. Twin-lock crowns to boot, and trip-lock crowns in the case of the GMT and the Daytona. So, by today's standards, it's obvious that these watches are distinct from your GMTs, your Explorer 2s, your Deep Seas, your Sea Dwellers. These are the Rolex dress watches, regardless of how they market Cellini. And while Cellini sputters with no end in sight, Rolex does decent business in dress watches with its two 100-meter water-resistant stalwarts. And again, that's a 118138 in yellow gold. That's a dress watch. That is a dress watch through and through, but still 100 meters. Now, Bulgari, just this year, in LVMH Geneva days, launched a new version of its Octo Finissimo automatic, and this is sort of the one we've been waiting for. Stainless steel, lower priced, and if the 2017 Octo Finissimo Auto, which was, of course, the GPHG laureate in the Men's Watch Prize, if it had one weakness, it was the fact that it looked like a sports watch, but it was 30 meters water resistant. Well, that is now rectified with a watch that's 100 meters water resistant, and still, at 5.25 millimeters thick, it is thin. It is not 5.25 millimeters thick, it is that many millimeters thin. This is a thin watch, this is a razor edge. Can we go full screen just to emphasize that? Because that is a crazy profile for a watch that, again, is 100 meters and mechanically identical to the standard Octo Finissimo. They added 1/10 of 1 millimeter. No compromise, and in stainless steel, a little bit more durable than the previous titanium versions. That is the watch to buy. If you're as Bulgari, trying to lure in buyers who were weaned in the luxury space on Rolex Submariners and Omega Seamasters, this is a great foot and door watch. I would also say that Grand Seiko is getting into the act, and this company actually has a long-standing tradition of marketing all-arounders that aren't expressly sports watches or dress watches that have good water resistance. So for 2019, I would say that the SPGA 407, probably the underrated cult watch of the year. That timepiece, better known as the Skyflake to collectors online, is a great example of a highly water-resistant dress watch because unlike the original, and can we go full screen there so you guys can see why it's called the Skyflake? It is that multiply layered, stamped and varnished dial that you get on the Snowflake, but it's executed in a lovely and rich sky blue, making this timepiece truly distinctive and yet identifiably linked to one of Grand Seiko's greatest hits. Now, The original Snowflake, we'll show it for comparison's sake, issued an entirely different character with full bracelet, a semi-cushion case profile, much like a Rolex Oyster, and a sports watch design ethos. So for 2019, this watch broke decisively with its famous forebear, and dress watch leanings were clear. You can see how different this case is in profile, and the choice to use an alligator leather strap rather than a bracelet further formalizes the look. Now, of course, you could throw it on a NATO, and at 100 meters water resistant, this is very much a swimmable watch. But I like that Grand Seiko took a timepiece that we all loved, and rather than simply changing the dial to a blue one in the same case, changed the entire character of the watch while retaining that underlying durability and water resistance. It's more elegant as a presence on the wrist, and you can see that the elegance of this model on my wrist is second to none. If you're interested, Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com. We might have a few of these available. And it's secure in its own identity as a semi-formal choice that just happens to be 100 meters water resistant. Finally, there is one of the pioneers of the modern highly water resistant dress watch genre, and that is the Omega Constellation Globemaster, which is the perennial leading candidate to be declared most underrated watch. Launched in 2015, people loved it at launch, but they didn't ship them for almost a year, so all of that momentum was lost. This timepiece is always going to be an also-ran in a world where Asia loves the traditional Griffin Claw constellation, and the rest of the world is obsessed with Seamasters and Speedmasters. Don't discount this watch. At 39 millimeters in stainless steel with a pie pan constellation dial and a tungsten bezel, this 100-meter water-resistant chronometer is one of the best watches you can buy at any price, new or used. New, you get a 5-year warranty. Used, depreciation is your friend. You win either way. And there are several versions, including a lovely dark gray slate metallic version, though I do believe this pie pan dial blue is the most charismatic, and it's the one I would choose personally. But again, 100 meters water resistant, and it is part of the Constellation family, which was born in 1952 as a dress watch and remains today Omega's dress watch line. So you can dress it up or you can dress it down. Dress it up on alligator leather. Dress it down on a NATO, or straddle the fence with a full bracelet, as Omega offers that too. It gives it a sporty ambiance, and in a world where everyone is chasing full bracelet sports watches that are also do-it-all all-arounders, this might be the best answer, as you're going to pick that thing up with no weight and considerably less cash out of your kitty than a Nautilus or a Royal Oak. So, remember, there is a difference between this and the new Constellations. The new Connies are 50 meters water resistant, and they use the lower line 8800 movement from the Diver 300 meter, not the 8900 twin barrel. With the Globemaster, you're getting the twin barrel. There is a difference. Power reserve, isochronism, and of course the time zone hour setting system. So you want the Connie, go with the Connie. Like I said, an underrated watch and a real connoisseur's gem. Let's quickly check the box and see what you guys are saying right here. Freddie Turner saying also the Aquaterra straddles the dress sport divide pretty well. Alan L, I'm all about the Constellation. Abdul R saying I would rather have the Octo or the Snowflake. Both good choices. There's no wrong answer right there. We've got ID guy saying, need to do discussion on the Constellation. We will talk about the Constellation more on this show in the future. From the Rene Bonvart, future Corum founder, designed in 1952 original, to the C-Case Connies of the 60s, to the arrival of the Manhattan in 1982, to the Double Eagle in 2003. We will do a Constellation segment on this show soon. And right here, Emily N saying, Pie Pan Constellation might be my next Genta-designed piece. Lee V, Tim, hi. Your thoughts on the Jacques Dro Big Seconds? Jacques Dro, buy them used, but beautiful watches. Everything I said about Breguet goes times 10 with Jacques Dro. If you want to find an automaton for crazy little money, that might be your best candidate. The watches are cool, and they're basically powered by Blancpain movements. Personally, my favorite Jacques Dro is the enamel dial double retrograde perpetual calendar. That is a very special watch, especially since there's a little bit of an ivory tone to a lot of the enamel dial JD watches. And then right here, we've got Oliver saying, the new Octo is a killer, and I've got to agree with you right there. Thomas Burnett opining that the Globemaster looks best on the leather strap, and I would agree with you. It is sort of native to the leather strap right there. And Logan Hall, apparently not a fan of Connie's. And then we've got Steve Bowden saying, the bracelet doesn't do it for me on the Connies. And Juan Almost noting that Breitling Premier provides a ton in the dress watch category. I own the Panda and the green Bentley version. I love the green Bentley version of the Breitling Premier. It's almost like after 16 years, they got Breitling for Bentley right, and that model for me is probably the single coolest non-Navitimer that Breitling makes. Check out the green dial Premier for Bentley, because that is a very, very handsome watch. Again, it straddles the line between dress watch and sports watch. It's 100 meters, but it's a little bit more formal than a Navitimer or an Aviator, and certainly more than any Super Ocean. So I'm going to give that to you, Juan. That's a good nominee for that category of the water-resistant dress watch. All right, guys, we got Juan asked the question, and I answered it. Your wish is my command. And then we've got Ashruth Reddy saying, hi Tim, I've been following you for a few months, but it's the first time I've caught you live. Everyone who's catching me live, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Guys staying up late, getting up early, or watching in a second or third language. I appreciate you so much. I'm going to show you wrist shots right now. Your piece is on my pixels. Your watch is on this box. Ben S. pairs his Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter with a spicy cocktail of Moscow Mule. Kevin K. matches his yellow gold Daytona to the sunset in sunny San Diego. Oh, my ultimate landing spot. That is where I will ultimately wind up, San Diego, where the sun always shines and the bikes are always on the road. Gorgeous, gorgeous composition, Kevin. Jeff and his vintage Datsun 260Z, a car and a watch fan after my own heart, a green 260Z, and I should mention, a Goffberg bought Omega Seamaster Aquaterra. Thank you for trusting our company over in the Garden State. And then we've got Jill L. We've got another lady joining us. Brings this episode to a soft landing with our second Glasuta Original Senator Navigator panorama date spotting of the night. Tim, well, Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com if you want to buy from us. That is our direct purchase and pricing inquiry line. And of course, in addition to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com, Monday mailbag for all of your wrist shots. Please, guys, send me loom shots. I'm building up a full loom shot set so we can do all loom shots next episode. And remember, comment and subscribe and check out Tim_Mosso on Instagram. Guys, thank you so much. Thanks to my crew. Thanks to you. Time out, Tim out. Wear your watches in the best of health. And thanks for logging on.